But here's a lesser-known statistic about Israel. Israel has one of the highest concentration of nonprofit organizations per capita. And in the aftermath of October 7th, countless more life-changing initiatives, and we heard about a couple of them today, have emerged both in Israel and in the Jewish communities worldwide. Many of these organizations mobilized overnight, and they rushed to support the hundreds of thousands of people impacted by this war. This is really the Israeli spirit in action. Now, we can't highlight all of these organizations, these transformative organizations and initiatives today, but we do want to shine the spotlight on one particularly remarkable initiative, Minds and Hearts. Minds and Hearts is a nonprofit dedicated to combating anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment online. And Daniel Rosen, a key figure in Minds and Hearts, is here to share more about their vital work and its impact. Come up here, Daniel.
Okay, I want to thank everyone so much for this opportunity. In 1998 to 2002, I was a student at NYC, New York University, and during that time, I was the president and leader of a proposal group called Torchback. And during that time, we did rallies and protests and had letter writing campaigns and marches. And we were actually quite successful. We were able to really affect the discourse at NYU. And we were written about in the New York Post and the New York Sun and Village Voice a few times. We were all over the Washington Square News, and it was quite effective. And then I went ahead and graduated in 2002. I saw that, I called them, at the time they were my adversaries. Today, I call them my enemies because of the way they act. And I saw that they were making inroads in many different ways with different communities, but at that time, at the age of 22, I was graduating, I was moving on with my life, and that's what I did. And for the last 21 years, I've been in the private sector, working in a family distribution business. So if anybody needs flour, I'm your guy. Okay. Then October 7th occurred. And for me, it was a crucial aftermath of what we saw here in the United States. We saw people right away, the Israeli army hadn't even stepped foot in Gaza yet. Right away, everyone was saying, not everyone, our enemies were saying that, the Israelis, were responsible for what happened. They were, saying things like, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. And it really shook me up. And what really surprised me was not the people who I expected to act as our enemies, acting like our enemies, but it was the other people who I just saw as ordinary Americans, acting in ways that really surprised me. And I understood that people were being infected by half-truths and lies. And my wife and I spent a lot of time talking about it, thinking about it. My wife, Rosen. And we basically came to the conclusion that social media was playing a massive role in forming, young people, not all people, but specifically young people's, minds and attitudes. And we understood that, downstream from social media is where politicians are informed, educators are informed, and general culture. And if we wanted to affect the way people thought, we had to affect what was going on social media. So with that understanding, I right away called my good friend Aaron Herman, and we came together and we basically decided that we were going to do something, and we created Minds and Hearts. Minds and Hearts is basically a technology company which is going to be an app which allows people, it is to create a network comprised of hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, to work in a coordinated way on social media to affect the discourse. Now, it is true that many people today are working individually, but that's just it. People feel very alone, and they're like a lone voice in the wilderness. And so, by working in a coordinated way, one voice becomes 10 voices, becomes 100 voices, becomes 1,000 voices, and suddenly we have a lot of power and strength. And that's what Minds and Hearts is all about. And we're hopefully going to be launching on February 7th. That's our launch date. And we've been working very hard towards that goal. I'd like to share with you something that, for me personally, after October 8th and its aftermath, I became recalibrated. I thought I was done with the whole activist thing. I thought I was done at 22, but I realized at 44, I had to get back into it. And the positive thing to know here is that there are many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who have become recalibrated, and I'm sure many of you are among them, okay? And beyond that, I can tell you for a fact, there's at least 500 initiatives which have come out of this whole experience. Some are involved with messaging, and some are involved with technology, and some are involved with grassroots mobilization, and the hope is we can all come together to work together to really affect the narrative and the conversation. And I want to share with you basically, right now, we're in what I call the 15 years war, or the 15 years effort. And when the last bullet is fired in Gaza, this is going to continue here. And what we do now is going to affect our children and our grandchildren's future. And so it's really imperative that we act now in coordinated ways. And that's the key word, the coordinated way. And I'd like to share another thing, which is that, we shouldn't worry what the other side is doing, okay? We can learn from what the other side is doing because they've been extremely effective. And they've been doing it for 30 years. But what we ought to be thinking about is what we can do, how we can be proactive and not reactive. And I want to share that we can organize, we can rally, we can fight, and we will win. We will win. Yom Kippur, it's a long day, as you all know, and I always try to get myself a little book to read and put it inside the Siddur. And I was reading this book, and it was written by a rabbi named Rabbi Ovadia Bartanura from Italy from 1488. And he decided he was going to move from Italy to Jerusalem, right? He was going to have a pilgrimage, and it took him 3 years to get there. And along the way, he started in Italy, he went to France, and then he went to Egypt, and then finally got to Jerusalem. And he decided he was going to tell the story of the Jewish people wherever they lived, about what life was like there. It's a short book, I recommend it very much, okay? And basically, there was one theme that kept repeating itself, that it didn't matter where he went, whether it was a Muslim country or a Christian country, life was terrible for Jewish people in 1488, okay? Maybe they had a little more rights, a little less rights here, but they basically lived in squalor, with no rights. They were subject to the whim of the sovereign, and it kind of put things into perspective for me. To say, like, yes, things are tough now. Yes, we went through trauma. Yes, we have challenges. But it's also true that it's never been better to be a Jewish person in the world as it is today. And so I think we should take from that we're going to keep fighting, but things are going to get better. Okay?